It was a quiet morning in Boulder, Colorado on June 1st, 2025. The city was gearing up for its annual Solidarity Walk, a peaceful demonstration supporting victims of violence and showing solidarity with global humanitarian causes. People gathered, in small groups, exchanging words of encouragement, preparing for the long walk ahead. The sun was shining, the air crisp, and the city's energy reflected the hope of a better world. But beneath the peaceful surface, something far more sinister was brewing. Mohamed Sabry Soliman, a 45-year-old Egyptian national, had been living in Colorado Springs with his wife and 5 children for the past few years. Despite his relatively calm exterior, Soliman was harboring resentment and a brewing hatred. The past year had been filled with tension for him, and he had long been planning something drastic, something that would send a message. It was a plan set into motion long before the attack, an act of violence that would take aim at a vulnerable group, all under the guise of a misguided mission. Soliman had waited until after his daughter's high school graduation to execute his plan, making sure to preserve the appearance of normality. He believed in a twisted sense of purpose, thinking he could find justice by attacking the very people he saw as his enemy. That fateful morning, he was ready. His targets, innocent demonstrators, the group gathered peacefully for the Solidarity Walk. As the walkers made their way through the streets of Boulder, some chatting casually, others in deep contemplation, Soliman was preparing in the shadows. Armed with Molotov cocktails and a makeshift flamethrower, he moved quickly to his position, blending in with the crowd. The first strike came without warning. A Molotov cocktail exploded in the air, sending a wave of panic through the peaceful crowd. Screams filled the air as people scattered in every direction, but Soliman wasn't done. He turned his flamethrower on the crowd, dousing people with a deadly spray of fire. The scene was chaotic, confusion and terror spreading in the blink of an eye. The attack was fast, brutal, and it left 16 injured, including a Holocaust survivor. The attack wasn't just an act of violence, it was an act of terror aimed at shaking the very fabric of the community. As the flames began to die down, first responders arrived on the scene. Their faces, usually calm and controlled in the face of tragedy, now betrayed the shock they were witnessing. The once peaceful city of Boulder was now the scene of a violent, senseless attack. The investigation began immediately. Law enforcement agencies worked around the clock, sifting through the chaos, trying to piece together what had happened. Surveillance footage was reviewed, and witness testimonies were gathered. It didn't take long before Soliman's name surfaced. Soliman had made a misstep. He wasn't as careful as he thought. Investigators were able to trace his actions back to his residence in Colorado Springs. With the help of facial recognition technology, they quickly identified him as the prime suspect. Within hours, law enforcement had a clear picture of who they were dealing with. The authorities didn't take any chances. Soliman was tracked down, arrested, and taken into custody without further incident. But while his arrest brought a sense of relief to the community, it also raised more questions. Why would someone living a relatively quiet life turn to such extreme measures? As Soliman sat in a federal detention center in Brooklyn, awaiting trial, the charges against him began to mount. He was formally charged with 118 offenses, including 28 counts of attempted first-degree murder, 14 counts of first-degree assault, and multiple counts of using incendiary devices. He was also charged with animal cruelty for involving his pets in the planning of the attack. But the most chilling of all was the federal hate crime charge that accompanied the other charges. The courtroom was a tense environment as Soliman's trial began. The evidence against him was overwhelming: video footage, witness testimony, and his own words. Investigators revealed that Soliman had been planning the attack for over a year. He had even spoken openly about his belief that the group he targeted were Zionists, and had expressed his intention to carry out similar attacks in the future. The prosecution laid out their case, highlighting Soliman's premeditation, the sheer cruelty of his actions, and the damage done to the community. They painted a picture of a man who had been waiting for the right moment to unleash his anger, someone who saw violence as the solution to his hatred. Soliman's case was complicated by his immigration status. He had entered the United States on a B-2 tourist visa in 2022, but that visa had expired in February 2023. Instead of returning to Egypt, Soliman applied for asylum and was granted a work permit, which also expired in March 2025. The system had allowed him to stay, but it had also failed to detect the darkness lurking within him. Authorities learned that Soliman had been living in the country illegally at the time of the attack. His wife and children were detained by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, as part of the investigation. They were questioned about Soliman's actions, but no one knew just how deeply he had kept his plans hidden from his family. The government made it clear that they would not let his family suffer for his actions. A federal judge issued a temporary order blocking their deportation, citing that the family needed time to receive a fair process. But the damage had already been done. In the wake of the attack, Boulder was shaken. The city's Jewish community in particular was deeply affected. The attack had occurred during the Jewish holiday of Shavuot, and the community was left grappling with the violation of their peaceful gathering. Yet, despite the horrors, the community found a way to come together. The 30th annual Boulder Jewish Festival took place a few weeks later, albeit with heightened security and a focus on healing. Organizers emphasized unity, reminding the public that the attack would not define them. In the face of hatred, the community remained strong with a renewed commitment to peaceful advocacy and solidarity. In a show of strength, Boulder's leaders reaffirmed their commitment to peace, resilience, and the unwavering belief that violence would never win. As Soliman's trial continues, the questions remain. How did a man from a peaceful community turn into a terrorist? What drove him to commit such a heinous act? The answers may never fully be known, but the trial will serve as a reminder of the consequences of unchecked hatred and the importance of community vigilance. With his sentencing approaching, Soliman faces a possible 672 years in prison if convicted, on all charges. But for the survivors, for the families affected, and for the Boulder community, the true cost of his actions will never be measured in years behind bars. The story is far from over. The trial continues, and justice awaits. The community holds its breath, hoping that the law will prevail and that healing can begin.